back to Born of Dread. I'm Ayla, and tonight I wanted to talk all about Japanese folklore. For centuries, people all across Japan believed it was filled with invisible spirits. Creatures hiding in rivers, entities wandering through the forests, and supernatural beings that humans could see when they least expected it. In Japan, they call these beings yokai. And according to folklore, these beings never actually disappeared and people still encounter them today. So what is Japanese folklore? Much of it comes from the spiritual tradition of Shinto, which teaches that spirits come from the natural world. It's believed that spirits resonate near mountains, trees, and rivers, even everyday household objects. Over time, these beliefs kind of intertangled with traditions and storytellings and local mysteries. And as a result of all of this, we now have yokai. Some were playful, some were dangerous, and some were believed to appear whenever people wandered where they shouldn't. So the yokai can take many different forms. Some resemble animals and some resemble humans. There's always something really unsettling about them. One of the most famous yokai is called Kappa, and these Kappas were believed to live in rivers and lakes. They were often blamed for the mysterious cases of people drowning. I found this really crazy story from a Japanese fisherman, and he described something strange he experiences while fishing alone near a river at night. He said he heard splashing just behind him. When he turned around, the water was completely still. Okay. A few seconds later, something small and dark broke the surface just for a moment, then disappeared again. He left immediately. To this day, he says he has no idea what he saw. Now, you might be thinking it's probably just a fish, but I feel like a fisherman would distinguish that, so must have been something creepy to freak him out. Another really scary spirit that I want to talk about in Japanese folklore is the oni, or onai. The onai spirits are very, very massive demon-like beings, often depicted with horns and glowing eyes. These creatures are believed to reside in mountains or even rivers. Historically, the onai represent chaos, punishment, and even destruction. But interestingly, people still report seeing the onai in mysterious places near the mountains. I found a story from a hiker who claims that he had an encounter with an onai. He was visiting a remote forest trail up in northern Japan, and he shared the story online about hearing heavy footsteps behind him. At first, he assumed it was another hiker, but the trail was extremely narrow. When he stepped aside to let the person pass, no one ever appeared. I'm sure when you're alone in the woods, your mind is gonna play tricks on you anyway. I know I would totally psych myself out, so I don't know if I want to chalk it up to that. In Japanese folklore, there's another name for spirits, which is Yurei? Sorry if I'm not saying that correctly. They are believed to be spirits of people who died with unresolved emotions. This is really creepy, but they're often described as walking around in white burial clothing and with long dark hair covering their faces, which immediately made me think of the Grudge movie. I found this commonly known story about a taxi driver who had an encounter with one of these spirits. Late one night, a young woman entered his cab and asked to be taken to a nearby neighborhood. When they arrived, she stepped out without saying a word. But when the driver turned around to collect the fare, the back seat was empty. No one had opened the door. That's creepy. I don't like, even when I'm driving by myself at night, I don't know why I always psych myself out, or when I get into my car at night, like somebody's behind me. I think, yeah, that would be the end of me right there. I want to talk about the importance of the forest setting in Japanese folklore. Many yokai were believed to live deep in the mountains and in the wilderness. One example of these spirits is the Tengu. Tengu were described as these powerful mountain spirits, sometimes appearing in these bird-like humanoid cryptid kind of form. And a lot of people claim they actually take the form of wandering monks. When I was researching, I found a story from a camper who shared this eerie experience on a mountain campsite. He states, late at night, he heard what sounded like someone walking around his tent. Slow footsteps. Branches were snapping, but when he opened the tent, there was clearly nothing there. The footsteps stopped immediately. Now, I feel like I'm kind of noticing a pattern with these Japanese spirits, and that's they're mostly invisible, and then really the encounter of them stops as soon as the human like notices something weird or will turn around, and then nothing will be there, nobody will see anything. I feel like most of the haunted stories I hear in like the Western culture is very much like you see the spirit, you know, it's there, it's manifested. I feel like in these Japanese folklore, things just kind of do disappear. So let's talk a little bit about why these stories exist. Interestingly, many of these stories actually served a practical purpose. If you think about it, rivers and these mountainous terrains in Japan were very dangerous. The mountains could be disorienting, and traveling alone at night was extremely risky before modern lighting. Stories about the yokai helped reinforce this caution. But as generations passed, those warnings kind of turned into legends. And kind of like I said, interestingly, stories like this appear all over the world. Forests filled with spirits, creatures that mimic voices, or strange encounters deep in the wilderness. Even places famously like the Appalachian Mountains. But the feeling behind all of these stories are really often the same, and it's the sense that the natural world is still kind of filled with these unexplained encounters and supernatural mysteries. The Japanese folklore does still continue to inspire novels, books, and modern storytelling, but the reason these stories really do stay so popular is very simple. They really do tap into human fear and this idea of being watched and, you know, creepy things happening around you. They truly tap into something deeply human, and that's our fascination with the unknown. So whether the yokai are just purely folklore or something people once believed they actually encountered, their stories still remain some of the most fascinating cryptid encounters and just stories in general. And if you've ever personally experienced something unexplainable or something weird, please email me your story at bornofdread@gmail.com. I would love to make an episode where we talk about your guys' stories and unexplainable experiences here in a future YouTube video. Let me know if you guys have any ideas on what you want to hear next. And always, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.